Do you guys remember the Game Boy Micro? It was basically a squished down version of the Game Boy Advance with a backlit screen. I remember always begging my mom to buy me one when I was a kid because I was so fascinated about how small it was, but I never got one. Now that I'm an adult, spoiled with the ability to play almost any game that I could ever imagine on the go using my Steam Deck, I don't really like the idea of buying an expensive device that's limited to only Game Boy Advance titles. On the other hand, the Steam Deck is entirely too big to fit into a pocket and take with you. That's why in today's video, we're going to build this tiny Game Boy micro-sized handheld so powerful that you can not only play Game Boy games, but even a ton of PS1 titles, given the game you want to play doesn't require the use of the L2 and R2 buttons. And the best part is, you can build one too. I'll be sharing all the STL files with a list of parts so that you can make one yourself at home, and it's only going to cost you about $60 in parts. Before we start this build though, I just want to let you all know that I really appreciate all of the support I've been getting on my videos lately. It's much appreciated and I try my very best to respond to every single comment. So if you have any questions or suggestions for me, be sure to let me know down in the comments below. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Corey, and I hope you enjoy this build. And if you do, consider subscribing to see more content just like this. But with that out of the way, let's get right into it. This is the Waveshare Game Pi 20, a $60 attachment that turns your Raspberry Pi Zero into a mini game console with a 2-inch display. But don't let that price scare you away. You can pick this exact same kit up on Amazon for less than $40 with free shipping at the time of recording this video. Inside the box, you'll find the main assembly containing the screen and battery, a bag containing the rubber membranes for the buttons, and a set of tools that should be immediately thrown in the nearest trash can. All of the buttons, and finally the enclosure with all of the required hardware for assembly. Powering this build is the Raspberry Pi 2W, a relatively powerful little computer that's smaller than an LED strip remote and only costs about $20. If you want to buy any of the products used in this video, including the tools I use, check out the Amazon affiliate links in the description down below. In order to connect the Pi to the Game Pi, I needed to solder on the GPIO header. But don't worry, if you don't know how to solder, you can actually just buy a Pi Zero with the GPIO header already attached. It'll just cost a little more. Now, we can connect our Pi Zero to the GPIO header on the Game Pi board. Next, we attach the rubber membranes for the face buttons using the tiny Phillips head screws that are included in the kit. Then, insert the shoulder buttons. Now we can just drop the whole assembly into the enclosure, fastening it with the 4 standoffs included in the box using a 4.5mm socket bit. Finally, we can drop all of the face buttons into the faceplate and screw it down using the 4 Phillips head screws. And that's the Game Pi 20 fully assembled. I'm gonna be honest here, it kind of sucks. Not only is the enclosure super sharp, uncomfortable, and probably one of the ugliest handheld gadgets I've ever seen, but they also didn't even bother to design the buttons so that they would stay right side up. Bruh. I think I can do better. So after hours of modeling and fusion and a ton of iterations, this is the design I came up with. And the best part is, I made sure to use all of the original hardware included with the Game Pi kit. Originally, I was gonna go with the classic purple and gray color scheme to pay homage to the original Game Boy Advance, but when I was shopping for Filament at Micro Center, these two colors caught my eye. Both of these filaments are Micro Center's Inland brand. This one is called Marble Gray, and this is Nebula, which is honestly my new favorite color filament right now. When I saw these, I knew I had to use them for this project. And the best part is, it still kind of plays homage to the original purple and gray color scheme I was initially going for. So after I was happy with the fitment of everything, I printed the enclosure on my Bamboo Lab A1 using the Nebula filament. Then I loaded up the Marble Gray and printed all of the buttons. And unlike the original enclosure, I made sure to include notches to keep the buttons right side up so that they don't just spin around while you're playing. Speaking of the original enclosure, there's something I've been meaning to do. Before I can install everything into the new enclosure, there's one last thing we need to do, which is to get an operating system installed on the Pi Zero, as we won't be able to access the SD card slot or any of the USB ports except for to charge once it's in the new enclosure. For this, I just downloaded the pre-made image of RetroPie for the Game Pi 20, provided by Waveshare, then flashed it to my micro SD card using the Raspberry Pi Imager tool. I also made sure to set up my Wi-Fi using the Imager tool so that I can copy my backups to RetroPie using FTP, since we won't be able to access the SD card later. That's why it's important to make sure you use the W version of the Pi Zero. Otherwise, you'll need to take it apart and remove the SD card every time you want to add games. Assembly is basically the same as it was before. Drop the assembly into the enclosure, tighten it down using the standoffs, install all of the buttons, being careful to make sure they're facing the right way up, and finally attach the faceplate with the 4 Phillips head screws.
While it may look pretty, that doesn't really do us much good if it sucks. So how does it perform?
Well, luckily for us, almost everything I tested was completely playable with stable frame rates, including NES, Super NES, Sega Genesis, and even PS1 games. I even tried playing one of my favorite PSP games, Burnout Legends. But unfortunately, the Pi Zero 2 just doesn't have the graphical horsepower needed to achieve playable frame rates. It does technically run though, albeit at like 2 FPS.
I had a lot of fun making this project, and I learned quite a few new modeling techniques in this process. I just hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. And if you did, I think you know what to do. Smash that like button, get subscribed, and hit that bell icon so you won't miss any future videos. Be sure to check out my other content like this video where I build an awesome RetroPie controller for my Raspberry Pi 5. Anyways, I hope to see you all in the next one. Later.